Well, Iran has launched new drones and missile attacks against Kuwait and Bahrain. The Gulf states are close allies of the U.S., which maintains military infrastructure in both countries. In Kuwait, the attack struck its international airport, killing at least one person and injuring more than 60 others. Debris from intercepted missiles also fell in populated areas. Tehran says the strikes are in retaliation for a previous U.S. attack on an Iranian island in the Strait of Hormuz. An official ceasefire remains in place between the U.S. and Iran, despite repeated violations by both sides. Let's get more on this now with Rene Wildangel. He's a historian and journalist specializing in the Middle East. Rene, Iran has carried out attacks on Bahrain and Kuwait, two surrounding countries where the U.S. has military bases. What effect are these strikes having?
Well, the effects certainly further destabilize an already shaky ceasefire that is in place since April 8th, and since this war ended, we have seen repeated attacks from both sides, and also we have a double blockade. We have a blockade on Iran's side of the Strait of Hormuz, blocking international shipping through the strait, and we also have a U.S. blockade, basically trying to prevent Iranian vessels or vessels bound for Iran to pass. And both sides are trying to enforce this blockade, and there is an increased potential for renewed escalation now.
So it's really hard to talk of this war being over, given what's happening, or even a ceasefire being in place for that matter. Civilian targets are also being hit, including Kuwait's main international airport. Assuming that was deliberate, what strategy do you think could be behind it?
Well, it's not the first time we've seen this, again, since this war started, and also since April 8th. Iran has hit various states. First of all, obviously, this is an illegal attack if it's targeting civilians. And I think the Iranian strategy here is to show we are still ready to escalate. We are ready to do anything that it needs to raise the stakes for President Trump and to make a deal that is in our favor. And I think it's also interesting to see whom they did not hit this time. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, obviously bigger states that are militarily more capable. So apparently Iran is hesitant here to move towards a wider escalation. They're hitting two states with U.S. Army bases. But again, hitting civilian targets is also a step towards escalation, and it's clearly illegal under international law.
So far, these other states, the surrounding states, and you mentioned Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates. I mean, we've seen, Bahrain, Kuwait being hit just now. There are other states involved there too in the Gulf. Do you think they could start themselves getting involved by returning fire?
Well, I think at the current moment, it's not in their interest to do that and to move towards a further escalation. We should not forget that the economic damage at this point for the Gulf states is enormous. At the same time, they have been hit hard by Iran in the past. And if this situation continues and there is no lasting deal, then we might see a further escalation. And I think Iran is now acting from a position of strength, at least that's their perceived position. And President Trump apparently is in a quite uncomfortable situation right now. Of course, he's saying that he's going to get a great deal, but what we're seeing is more moving towards a potential escalation. And I think he desperately wants to get the Strait of Hormuz open because it's so important for world economy and the U.S. economy eventually.
Can you explain to us, Rene, where things stand right now in terms of talks between the warring parties? Iran says that it's suspended talks. The U.S. says communication is ongoing. How do you read these mixed signals?
Well, honestly, it's hard to read, and we don't know what is going on behind closed doors. But again, I think what we do know is that Iran is acting from a position of strength. And what we're hearing is not a comprehensive deal, is not a deal that limits Iranian capabilities for the nuclear program. It's not a deal that talks about Iranian human rights violations or the thousands of detainees, for example. We are hearing that it is a deal talking about releasing frozen Iranian assets in the US and in other places. And I think these are all details that are actually showing that Iran is really acting from a position of strength. The US desperately needs this deal. Obviously, again, in the center is the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And then we have the escalating situation in Lebanon. And Iran has made clear, by the way, since the beginning, since April 8th, that they want to see a ceasefire in the region, in Lebanon, in Gaza, and in Iran. And what we've seen is quite the opposite, an escalation, a situation where we're moving towards Israeli attacks that resemble the attacks in Gaza, with widespread civilian destruction. And this is a major obstacle. If this escalation continues, I think we will see also further escalation in Iran.
It's a complex and multifaceted conflict, to be sure. There's also Iran's nuclear program that presumably would be part of any negotiation if we get that far. Iran and the U.S. seem to be at an impasse, though, right now. What do you think it will take, Rene, to resolve this crisis in the Gulf? What factors do you think will determine the outcome?
Well, I mean, what we would ultimately need is a comprehensive diplomatic arrangement. The problem is what we're talking here about is another deal. And we're not even talking about it. We hear about it on social media from President Trump. And his deals, as we have seen in the more recent history, are not very sustainable. And we had a deal for Gaza, a so-called peace plan. Nothing there has moved forward. And I think we're very far away from a comprehensive diplomatic arrangement. President Trump desperately wants to open the Strait of Hormuz, but that is not enough. And I think there is a striking absence of some actors here, including the European Union, because they should have a huge interest in the Strait of Hormuz and also in a situation where this war does not escalate again. It's European interests as well. And they are not at the table as a diplomatic actor. We're not seeing any serious addressing of the nuclear file. And again, I think if we don't see a comprehensive agreement, including a ceasefire for Lebanon, and the devastating situation that we've seen in Lebanon right now will not last for long.
Rene, thank you very much. That was journalist and historian Rene Wildangel.
Thank you.